Hello, my name is Jim Lawrence. Our guests, members of the team, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time to come together as we continue our work towards accountability, transparency, and meaningful oversight in our county. But before we begin, let's remember, oversight matters. It's just not important, it's essential. Oversight empowers our communities, uncovers the truth, and drives meaningful change. As San Mateo County evolves, we all must recognize and support the critical role of oversight in shaping a more just and equitable future for all of our residents. Tonight's discussion on immigration, both locally and nationwide, ties directly into FxSMC's mission. These issues are deeply connected, and both are essential to building the future we all deserve. Change will not happen on its own. We must all continue to push for it. Again, thank you for being here tonight. Let's all dive in and really make this an interactive and productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And we are so honored tonight to have three powerful women and some of my favorite people speaking to us. First, Nora Melendez will speak. She will share her personal story and the impact that sheriff policies have had on her own family. And next, Lorena Melgarejo will share what we can do locally with the Rapid Response Hotline and how we can help local families who are impacted. And finally, Miosoti Tenecora, Mio, will provide updates about the current national picture. After they all three speak, we will have a short question and answer period. Please put your questions in chat, direct them to Trina Patton, and she will manage the questions. So let me give you just a brief introduction to each of these speakers so that you know what to look forward to. Nora Melendez is an entrepreneur, an advocate for immigrant rights, a writer, and a mother who lives with her partner Sergio and their three children in East Palo Alto. Nora is a member of the FxSMC San Mateo County Board of Directors, as well as the Silicon Valley Debug and the San Mateo County Coalition for Immigrant Rights. She has lived and worked in San Mateo County since 1983, after immigrating from Mexico. Most recently, she earned a certification in leadership and social justice from De Anza College, so she's a social justice warrior officially. She works hard to improve the lives of immigrants and their families through local advocacy, community leadership, speaking about her personal experience with the immigration system and working with local elected leaders to improve policy. Next, Lorena Melgarejo has served as Executive Director of Faith in Action since 2017. Faith in Action runs our County Rapid Response Hotline and has trained many of us to volunteer to help verify reports of possible ICE activity. With over 20 years in community organizing experience, Lorena started her career as a union organizer for Justice for Janitors, and she later worked as a faith-based organizer for Faith in Action National. In 2005, she became the lead organizer for the San Francisco Organizing Project. Before she stepped into her executive director position with Faith in Action Bay Area, Lorena coordinated parish organizing and immigrant solidarity for Faith in Action and the San Francisco Catholic Archdiocese, their Office of Human Integrity. She's a longtime resident of the Mission District in San Francisco. And our third speaker will be Mio Tenecora. She's an immigration attorney who works for the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. She's also the vice chair of the FxSMC San Mateo County Board of Directors. She has over 10 years of public service experience. She's a passionate advocate for international human rights, immigrant rights, and the elimination of domestic violence. Mio joined FxSMC because she fundamentally believes there should be oversight of law enforcement and that law enforcement serves the community. As such, the community should have a voice. So again, we'll start with Nora. Welcome, Nora.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So happy to be here to be able to share a little bit about myself and our family. Just a quick correction, though, for the DeAnza certificate was the Leadership in Social Change, not social justice. Just a quick correction. We'll have that updated on the website too. So yeah, it's regarding my family story. It's an ongoing immigration case that we've got going that started back in 2018. When in December that winter, my partner Sergio was arrested and transferred to McGuire in Redwood City. That was the local jail. And, you know, one day to the next, I had no idea what was going on or where he was. I had no information. But all I could find was, you know, some information online when I did a search. But that was just me, you know, trying to do something to get some information that wasn't available any other way. So long story short, you know, he was transferred from McGuire directly into the hands of immigration, which, you know, back then it was still allowed, where ICE could come into the local jails here in San Mateo County and pick up individuals and transfer them, you know, to ICE facilities. So this is what happened in December, and I thought I did the right thing by, you know, paying the bail that I found online. Right, I did find his information in the local courthouse, and there was a bail attached, and so you know, as quick as I could, I gathered whatever resources I had, and then, you know, family, right, and paid the bail, not knowing that there was a consequence to that action. So it was a big learning curve because I didn't really have any experience in the legal system or in, you know, dealing with immigration, even though myself I was undocumented for a lot of my childhood here. But we, you know, finally got a citizenship along with my other siblings um, when it was time for me to go to college. So I've had a citizenship for about 20 years or so. And so with that and the language and, you know, I drive and I have all the privileges of someone that grew up here and went to school and just did her thing and did her best. So I had that going for us, but that's about it. Again, I had no information, no training, and so all I had was kind of like a lot of good luck sometimes. And the first time that that happened for us was the Monday, a few days after Sergio was taken in. Monday morning, I met folks from Debug, Lulu. Shout out to Lulu. She was my number one person that got me and Sergio started on the right path. You know, and giving us the resources through Silicon Valley Debug, and then later on through you know, a good 12 or more nonprofit organizations that really took us in and helped us with money, with support, psychological support, you know, just hand holding a lot of that in the beginning until Sergio and I, you know, were able to come back together. After 8 months of working with Debug and now fixing, you know, and just a whole bunch of other folks, Sergio did come home after 8 months in 2019. And so ever since then, we've just been trying to prevent his deportation. He did get out on immigration bond that year with the support of, you know, lots of community members that came out to help us at that time with just like garnering support with even the lawyers and the judges, right? There was a lot of action that happened on our behalf, and that's why now we are currently working through the University of Idaho with the Ninth Circuit, and they just filed you know, our latest brief. And we're just looking to get a redo. You know, at this point, this is our last shot in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for immigration, and we're waiting to see what happens at the end of this year. Perhaps we'll have an answer as far as you know, preventing Sergio's deportation. So it's been an ongoing story. And you know, maybe we'll have a resolution this year. That's really our hope, because it's been hard to just deal with the same situation on top of everything else, right? That real life here now has to offer, which is just a lot of you know, a lot of fear and pain, and just a lot of anxiety over, you know, the economy and what isn't the economy, right? And everything else that is hard for everyone. So the fact that Sergio and I and our three kids are able to say that, you know, we're working, we're going to school, and we're doing our best is something that I can be proud to say, and that is due to everyone here, you know, from Fixin, as well as Debug and Simser, and everyone else that has backed us up. So you know, I'd be happy to take questions. I might have been all over the place with my story, but so I understand if you might have questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. And well, you are brave and courageous, as is your family, and your children are beautiful. We'll save questions till the end. So now we'll hear from Lorena about other local resources that can help.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nora, for sharing with everybody the realities that our communities are facing and have been facing for years. A lot of respect for you and your family. And thank you everybody for inviting us to share today the work that we're hoping to continue to strengthen in San Mateo County. I was just preparing. Many of you might have received the invitation for the event we're hosting at the Sobrados Center on March 6th, which is Thursday, at 5 o'clock. And we're going to do a briefing for community members just to let them know how it has been. And we were counting the weeks. How long has it been? It's only 7 weeks. And it's been, I think that in 25 years of organizing, and I've organized with labor, I've organized with nationally everywhere, and I've never worked this hard in my life. And I think a big it's important for us to remember that we're building something for the future, even though it is a situation like this that's forcing us to kind of do more than we would have done otherwise. That is setting us up for something bigger. Today it is because of the attacks on the immigrant community, but whatever we're building as a community now, and across differences, across languages, across class, will allow us to really be able to withstand everything, be it the economy, the cuts are coming from the feds, the housing crisis, whatever it is. So in some ways, I want to be joyful that this is a silver lining of crises, is that we will come out stronger on the other end. So, I mean, Nancy, you did such a beautiful job introducing me. I've been serving as a director of Faith in Action Bay Area for 7 years, and I've been with the organization for 20. I have a lot of love for the work that we're doing. The core work of Faith in Action is to actually build leadership of low income, directly impacted people. Um, and out of that is where the idea of the hotline came out. And let's see, I'm gonna try to share the screen so that it will help me kind of not talk too much. Okay. Can people see my screen? Yes? Okay, great. Um, so something we should be proud of in San Mateo County is that our hotline was the first rapid response hotline in the United States. And the idea was born out of the day after Trump got elected the first time. We got together with a lot of people who are undocumented and are leaders in the organization in both counties, and we gave this lot of room to grieve, to kind of be together in the moment of the fear, and then we reconnected to our strength so that we can kind of reach for creativity. And people came out with tons of ideas. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And for some of us who have faced the detention and deportation, or fighting for against deportation for our family members, I've had to do that for my father for 2 years, and it was a nightmare. We know that some of the hardest things is that you feel really isolated, um, and it's hard to get legal resources. It's expensive. It takes time to get a phone call back. And so the idea was like, well, what would it be like if we had a hotline, so a phone number that people that could call immediately if immigration came to their door. And this is 2016, November 2016. And we said, okay, let's do that. And then we talked to some friends that were immigration attorneys, and kind of told them the idea and say, oh, great, we'll be the attorneys. If somebody calls and they're detained, we're gonna respond and go talk to them at ICE, because their office happened to be about a block away from ICE. So that was the original idea of the hotline. And then we're like, we'll train people all over the county in San Francisco and San Mateo, so that community could check and go and see what's going on. And we did that. We trained like 600 people in San Mateo, 800 people in San Francisco. And it became a thing that then people started to get interested. We actually shared the idea with multiple counties in California. People have their own flavor of what the rapid response hotlines are. Counties with more money actually heavily invested to have amazing legal resources attached to it. San Mateo has its own flavor now. It's funded. Before, it didn't used to be funded until the end of 2018, but it was running. So it's been running for quite a bit of time now, and we've been answering 24/7 now. The county, and if you can thank your supervisor, send them an email and say thank you for funding rapid response attorneys, especially legal. The hotline, we answered the hotline. There's 3 of us who are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We answer it. We do that as volunteers. That's not a paid thing. Myself, my lead organizer in San Mateo, and my CFO are the people who answer the line all the time. And that's fine. But if we don't have attorneys that can do their work, then it's nice. We can support the families. But as Nora said, having the attorneys to do the filing and talking to people is super important. So that's how it was born, and it's beautiful, and it was an example for the rest of the country. And most of you know this already. It is nowadays, it is a collaboration with the county, the community organization that kind of runs the hotline, and then CLESPA and Pangea Legal Services are the attorneys that are on call with us. If somebody gets detained and we are able to make an intake and let them know, they can go to ICE and talk to them immediately. That didn't used to exist before. It used to be so hard, and now we have that. So that's a huge, it makes a difference between somebody getting deported on the same day and actually having a chance to fight, like Nora has been talking about. The other piece, which is everybody, many of you have been trained to be verifiers so that the rumors don't freeze our community in place, which you might have heard that lots of people haven't been able to go to work or things like that because there was so many rumors and people were scared. So now we have about 200 people across San Mateo County who have participated in the new training, are signed up, and anytime we get a rumor, immediately we can go have somebody check it out, see if it is ICE or the police or something else, so that we can kind of battle out the misinformation that's been creating so much terror. And that's believe it or not, it was the worst thing that was affecting people in the first 3 weeks. The fear was preventing people from going to work and sending their children to school. So lots of teachers and doctors were calling us like, people are not showing up to appointments, they're not coming to school. And this is getting better. I think that the information, the know your rights, all these things have really helped to kind of understand what it's like to live in this reality, in this new normal that is shouldn't be but is. Advocacy, which is what all of you do constantly, and then we're also doing accompaniment to ICE check-ins and courts. That's another role. This morning, I accompany a family of three, a mom and two kids. And I went at 7 in the morning to ICE with them so they wouldn't go alone. And for the first time in 20 years of doing that, they didn't come out. They were detained, and we knew this was a risk. They already had a meeting with one of our attorneys yesterday. But there was like, we were hoping they would let them at least give them some warning so that then they can pick up their stuff and then show up with their passport. But they didn't come out. It was hard. It was hard. It's terrible. We had a plan B. I had the emergency contact. The attorney came and talked to them. Um, but yeah, the situation is different now than it had been. I've been accompanying people to ICE for years, and I've never had this situation where I don't get to see them again. They're in Louisiana right now, and they're gonna be home back in their country. And it was a little 5-year-old and a 8-year-old, and they just didn't have any more legal recourses. Um, and that's just a reality. The kind of reality that we're facing right now is different. Some of it we can fight, and some of it we just need to be present and accompany and do the best that we can as a community so people are not alone. The mutual aid is, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the visibility is what everybody's been doing, sharing the red cards, the yellow cards, the posters. So the line is nothing if people don't know about it. So making sure that for this, not just the first 7 weeks, but for 4 years, we want every business, every laundromat, every school, everybody to have this information. So we will need everyone to pitch in and share, do that in their neighborhoods and their community. Um, so we know about the three pieces, right? Like the community, we want people to be involved and be the witnesses and not just post on social media without checking it out. That's what the hotline is for. Make sure that people, when they're detained, they have representation. And then all of you who are now verifying rumors and can accompany people to ICE. The community kind of who are citizens and are at less risk to be able to show up is another part of the hotline. Mutual aid is new. It's something that we started this time around. We have learned over the past 9 years that it's not just legal resources, but when a breadwinner is detained and or deported, normally the family that's left behind within a couple of weeks cannot make ends meet, and they end up being evicted. They end up not being able to eat, and there's not enough resources in core agencies that can move fast enough to meet the need. Because if the woman, for example, left behind, the wife has a baby and is not working, they cannot show that they're going to be stable enough to receive like rental support. So there is nothing for them, or it's hard to find it. So what we're doing right now is we're building this fund that is built by community, that if somebody is a victim of a detention or deportation of their breadwinner of the family, then we're providing, making sure that 4 months of rent are paid for, and that people get at least $1,500, 1,500, yeah, um, up to $1,500 a month for expenses. It's not a lot, but it's something. And this fund, 100% of the money that gets donated will be used for that. None of it is for administration or to pay for staff or anything. The whole money will go to families. Right now we have 3 families, and it's about $4,000, $5,000 a month per family for 4 months, just to keep them afloat for 4 months. Hopefully in the future we can advocate that the county or somebody else can do something to change it, um to pick that up. So people know about this, people call the hotline. We do an intake if somebody's detained, and if there is enough time before 3 p.m. At 3 p.m. people get transferred out, so we want people to call the hotline quick. Then our attorneys can go have a one-to-one intake and do some limited scope representation. This is a huge blessing. If they call later, the attorneys will still do an intake and everything, but it wouldn't be in person because people get sent out to detention center. And then these are the roles that I share with things that we can do. People can become verifiers. They can do visibility. If people are interested in doing accompaniment in San Francisco at the courts or the ICE, that's another role. And of course, donating to the fund is always super helpful. These are, you've seen these, so that's who we are. That's what we're doing. I hope that kind of gives a taste of what we're trying to build. And if people have questions, you can always just email me or whatever. This is the moment that we're building and learning and seeing what it's going to be like. It is going to be different, and it's going to be hard. It's not like the past 8 years. This is a whole new normal, and will require every single person to be connected and do the best that we can. Not everything is gonna turn out right this time around, but we can be together through it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorena, and for all that you do. And we did put the links in the chat to how people can help, including if you can donate directly to help families. Any amount would be good. And now we'll hear from Mio.
Hi all. It's so great to be here with you all in community. I think the slides are going to be shared soon. Oh, okay, great. Before I start, again, it's so great to be in this space with you all, with this group of people that are so passionate about social justice. One thing I'll say, I am a staff attorney at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, but I am here in my individual capacity to sort of give you probably like 10% of immigration policies and law updates. And just going forward, please keep in mind that a lot of information is still in flux. Our administration has thrown a lot of new processes and policies and law that I'll be covering some today, but there's just so many changes and they are ongoing. Every day there's something new. So with that said, next slide. So we might have all heard of the numerous executive orders. Many of these executive orders have greatly impacted immigrant communities. Several of the executive orders contain language about national security, terrorism, and violent crime. One of the executive orders declared the situation at the southern border a national emergency. One of the questions that keeps coming up is, can the president do this? The answer is yes, because the president has broad authorities to declare an emergency within the meaning of the National Emergencies Act of 1976. Stemming from this national order, all of the foregoing actions I will be talking about are justified by national security concerns. This national emergency declaration mostly means the freeing up of resources, money mostly, to respond. So this means more military deployment and DHS officers, Department of Homeland Security officers at the border. In addition, on January 24th, a dormant law that Congress passed in 1996 was invoked. The acting Homeland Security Secretary, sorry, the secretary declared basically what's called a mass influx, which gives the Department of Homeland Security authority to deputize local law enforcement to conduct immigration enforcement in all 50 states. In order to do this, we have regulations that require the federal government to sign a written agreement with any state or local agency it delegates authority to under this law. This mass influx period is only in place for 60 days. The declaration is set to expire March 24th, but it can be renewed. Under this mass influx finding, for example, agreements have been signed in Texas, which is a very hostile state for immigrants. The Texas National Guard already signed one of these agreements with the Customs and Border Protection Agency, authorizing the Texas National Guard to enforce immigration laws. The Texas National Guard have been already deployed to counties across Texas, for example. Moreover, because of the executive orders, there has been a major shutdown of the border. One of the first actions of the new administration was to shut down the CBP-1 application that allowed migrants to make an appointment at the southern border to seek asylum. Now, arriving non-citizens are detained for longer periods and are not screened for asylum anymore. They're screened instead for something called protection under the Convention Against Torture that has a high standard. It is usually a last resort benefit folks apply for after applying for asylum. The border is also in mass chaos because Biden instituted harmful actions that limited the access to asylum, like the circumvention of lawful pathway rules and the secure the border rule. It remains to be seen how the new rules under the current president will interact with the former rules. Another executive order called Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats directs federal agencies to review countries within 60 days and to identify countries that have insufficient vetting and screening process, which could limit visa issuance and adjudication of certain immigration applications. Lastly, this executive order that I just mentioned also requires the government to take extreme measure to vet any person seeking a visa to an immigration benefit in the US with a focus on people coming from regions, quote unquote, or nations with identified risks. After a 60-day review of these countries, it allows the government to suspend entry to people from those countries or removes non-citizens from those countries in the U.S. The executive order cites to the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212F, to carry these measures, which, if you recall, was the same authority used to implement the Muslim ban during the first Trump administration. Next slide. I put here this slide, but I do not want to give it too much attention because this is based on not solid legal ground, and we just completely think is bogus. But here it is, and I want to talk about it. So our current administration has attempted to leave children born to parents or lawful permanent residents without U.S. citizenship. Signed an executive order about birthright citizenship. I want to remind everyone the 14th Amendment guarantees citizenship to anyone born in the U.S. The executive order directed federal agencies to not issue documentation confirming U.S. citizenship. For example, Social Security cards under this executive order would note that the person is not a citizen. Again, I don't want to give it too much airtime for this, but this is highly unlawful and it's already adjoined by multiple courts. So it didn't even go into effect. And if the Trump administration continues litigation and it goes up to the Supreme Court, again, it is highly unlawful. It would be, I don't know, something extraordinary for the Supreme Court to rule against birthright citizenship. Next slide. Okay, so just a word on TPS and parole. So TPS was first introduced as part of the Immigration Act of 1990 to provide protection from deportation, work permits, and in some cases, travel authorization for immigrants who can't return to their countries due to wars, environmental disasters, or other extraordinary circumstances. Venezuela was first designated in 2021 and then in 2023. Each designation has been made on extraordinary and temporary condition standards based on the severe humanitarian emergency that occurred under the Maduro regime. On February 5th, unfortunately, the Department of Homeland Security published a final ruling notice officially terminating the 2023 designation of Venezuela for TPS. So what does this mean? It will end, TPS will end for Venezuelan beneficiaries under the designation on April 7th. The 2021 Venezuela TPS designation, on the other hand, that has to still be reviewed, and there has to be a review 60 days before the expiration, which is on July 12th. So we'll see, but we're expecting the 2023 designation to also be terminated. This affects about 500,000 Venezuelans who have TPS. There are now 2 lawsuits fighting the termination, so we shall see what happens there. The same can be said for Haitians who have been granted TPS. Haiti has been designated for TPS since 2010 after the country suffered a devastating earthquake. On February 20th, the Secretary of Homeland Security shortened the Haiti's temporary protected status extension from 18 months to 12 months. The extension ends on August 3rd, and we'll see if the Department of Homeland Security decides to renew that for Haitian TPS holders. Additionally, the new administration issued an executive order titled Securing Our Borders, effectively ending the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan parole program, which was a humanitarian program, and pausing the United for Ukraine program, meaning no applications are being accepted for either program. Still, an open question is what will happen to folks who have parole currently, who are waiting, and we're waiting to see if those currently with parole will be told it will be revoked, or if the government will just let the period of parole expire. A huge concern for us right now is, for this population, is if these folks will be targeted for enforcement under expedited removal provisions that I'm going to be covering next. Also, any applications filed by these parolees, like asylum or family-based petitions, have been completely paused. USCIS is not adjudicating them because of this executive order. Next slide. Expedited removal is a process in U.S. immigration law that allows immigration officials to quickly deport certain undocumented individuals without a hearing before an immigration judge, essentially meaning that they can be removed from the country rapidly without the opportunity to present their case in court. In order for someone to get out of this fast process of deportation, they have to affirmatively say if they're afraid to return to their country of origin. And I say affirmatively because under Biden there was a change. It used to be that you know, ICE officials or CBP, Customs and Borders Patrol, had to ask an individual, "Are you afraid to return to your country?" But he changed that. You just have to. They don't have to ask you anymore, so you have to affirmatively say that. And there are some other nuances for expedited removal. I have a link in the end for a toolkit. It's community facing that you can share for folks because it does sort of require carrying certain documents just in case someone is arrested in the community and is put into this fast deportation process. Expedited removal has existed for many years, but it only applied to undocumented folks that were caught near the border. Now, expedited removal has been expanded all over the country. It is still unclear to us how this will be applied, but again, we have a toolkit already for community members with what kind of documents folks should be carrying if they're subject to expedited removal. Next slide. The Laken Riley Act. So this is a law that unfortunately was signed on January 29th. And mind you, there has not been an immigration law signed since like 1996. So this is something, you know, very new, and it's unfortunate. It mandates basically the detention of undocumented immigrants who are arrested or charged with certain crimes, including theft, burglary, shoplifting, assaulting a police officer, or any crime resulting in serious bodily injury or death, essentially requiring mandatory detention without the possibility of bail, even if they haven't been convicted. And again, I'll say that even if they have not been convicted, that means just arrested or charged. It allows also states to sue the federal government if they believe immigration enforcement decisions are not strict enough. This law was named after a victim of a crime committed by an undocumented immigrant. It is the administration's shameless attempt to exploit a tragic story to further their agenda of painting immigrants as criminals. I just want to note that studies have shown that immigrants generally are non-violent. It is unfortunate that this law was passed, and we have yet to see how this law will be implemented. Next slide. A word on just sensitive locations in ICE, because this has been one of the subjects that has been heavily talked about within our community. So ICE had a prior guideline that limited enforcement in these sensitive locations, and I have them here listed, like schools, hospitals, places of worship, places with where children gather. Unfortunately, on January 21st, DHS announced that the guideline for sensitive locations was rescinded. That means that they can conduct enforcement, immigration enforcement actions in these places, but it doesn't mean that they will. And they also rescinded a courthouse policy and then replaced it with a new one that is just sort of goes back to Trump 1.0 policy of targeting individuals that are quote unquote national security concerns. And so again, this allows them to do that, but it's very, we still believe it's a low risk that they will enter these sensitive or protected places. The recession is just the recession of this guidance is just a fear tactic by the new administration to make immigrant communities feel less safe, even if spaces that are at the heart of our like civil society, like schools. For this reason, we have been focused on training folks and organizations that work with immigrants to know their rights. There's been an explosion of requests for these trainings. Linked in the end also is a Know Your Rights toolkit that has a lot of information for folks. Again, I do want to emphasize that we still believe it's a low risk, but we still need to train everyone to know their rights. Next slide. And this next slide is just, we want to lead with power and not panic. We want to stay informed. And how we stay informed is by following trusted sources, Immigrant Legal Resource Center. We try our best to provide materials for the community and the immigration legal field so they can understand better the laws. So please stay informed. Do not follow unreliable sources. We do not want to create panic when it is not necessary. And I mean that because if you do not verify the information and you are talking to a member of our community who is immigrant and sharing this information without verifying, it could be extremely harmful. Word of mouth spreads very quickly, and we do not want unreliable information to be spread. And I want everyone to encourage everyone to carry a red card. I have it here. You might have already seen it. I have it on the slide as well. One side is English and the other side is the language that the immigrant might speak. We have it in 16 different languages. I also have a link in the end for that. And lastly, we don't want to feed into the harmful rhetoric of criminalizing immigrants. There's been a lot of talk in media centered around how harmful immigrants are to our society, but please do not feed into that narrative, especially if you are in a position of power or you are public facing with officials. Some of the officials might bring things up like immigrants are criminals and like we want to be protected against immigrants that are criminals. Just do not feed into that rhetoric. There's, again, studies have routinely shown how nonviolent immigrants are, and we can share that information if you need it. And next slide. And here are just the resources I've been talking about. The first one is the red cards that you can find there. We have them in 16 different languages and you can download them. We right now cannot take any more orders. We've literally been had so many requests that we have blown through our budget. But we have them there. You can print them yourself. And it doesn't have to be, I've been getting this question a lot. It doesn't have to be in red paper. The reason it's red is because when the person who made this card was thinking about soccer, and you know how if you're a soccer enthusiast, you throw in a red card, which sort of like gives someone like a signal of a penalty or something. So that's why it's red. Doesn't need to be red. The important information is the information inside of it. Also, if you can cut this might sound bizarre, but there's a reason for it. If you can cut the edges round and not pointed, that would be great. And the reason for that is we've been getting feedback that when someone is detained, the officials think that the pointed edge can be used in a negative way to harm someone inside the detention. So that's just something to consider. And then, I have here the litigation tracker. There's been a lot of lawsuits against the Trump administration. So this is an excellent resource it has all the litigation updated and they're constantly updating of what's going on in those cases. And then we have here an explainer of just executive actions and how that impacts immigration benefits and processing. And again, your Know Your Rights toolkit and the expedited removal toolkit. And I know that I said a lot of what might have felt to you a lot of information and a lot of negative information. But again, we've been here before and we are united as a community. And so we will continue to fight and we will continue to assert our legal rights and hold accountable the government. Thank you so much.
I want to thank our speakers for that wonderful and insightful information. And we're running out of time, but I have just a few questions I'd like to go over before I let people know what else they can do to help. So anybody who can answer this question, but Lorena, I think it was based on something you said about the family who's being deported and is now in Louisiana. So after deportation, are you able to offer, is your agency able to offer any financial or emotional support to the families?
They have a family there, and they also have a family here. The rest of their brothers and everybody's here. Um, we did not make that arrangement with the family, but I am in contact with the family members who are here, and we had a plan B, and we're doing what we can. Like, again, our agency is not a big agency. It is made up by a few people that are answering the hotline, and the financial help comes from people who donate. So we are saving what we have for people who are left behind without anything. And the good news around this is that because they were able to talk to the attorney, kind of think through it, they had a plan for what was going to happen to their apartment and their car. So the brothers are taking care of that and sending that home to them. So yeah, I'm gonna talk to the sister. I already talked to the teacher of the children. That's sort of what we're doing. This is a first time that from an ICE check-in somebody just gets detained like this with their kids. Normally it tends to be a family member and the family is here. So it's a good question. It's a good question of what to
Thank
do,
you.
and we will learn.
Okay, thank you very much. When a person has been taken by ICE, how does Faith in Action or the attorneys locate which detention center they have been sent to?
Yeah, so that's why we're telling people to call right away. If somebody is detained from Northern California, especially in San Mateo County, most of the time they are processed at 6:30 SANSM in San Francisco, and then they're transferred out with that same day or in a couple of days. So if we have the name, the real name and last name and their date of birth, then the attorney can go find them at the processing center and have a face-to-face meeting with the people. If they call a few days later, then we use, and anybody can do this, use the detainee locator that is in the in the government's page. And you need information. You can either have their A number or their, again, the name that they're using and their date of birth and country of origin to find them. And also attorneys can call and find out where they were transferred. So the most important thing here, if you're working with the immigrant community, is to encourage people to call right away, so that before somebody has the time to like sign away their rights or anything, they can talk to an attorney and be represented. It's just a different treatment.
Okay, great, thank you. So here's a question. We got to keep the answer as brief as possible, but these are the kinds of things that come up, as you know. So we have a member in our audience who says his uncle just got denied his I-90 request. He's from Nicaragua. He has a record and has been to jail, but is not currently on probation or parole. Is there anything they can do? So if anybody wants to take that one, Mio.
I think I do not want to talk out of turn. I would say that it requires a more nuanced sort of legal consultation to know a little bit more. But if you're generally if your green card was a renewal was denied, it could be a number of reasons. So again, a legal consultation would be best. Without knowing more, I don't feel like I can give like a useful answer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Nora, you talked about having a case before the court currently. Can you share with us briefly what case is before the court with Sergio and what is the hope for outcome?
Yeah, so again, so it's been since 2018 that we've been just working our way through San Francisco and up through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so step by step, we after Sergio was arrested, he was taken in by ICE and held for 8 months, then received an immigration bond. And so with that, he was able to come home and then continue on and appeal his case to help prevent his deportation. So we bounced for three times now up to the Ninth Circuit before the Board of Immigration Affairs still. And our outcome, the desired outcome is for us to have a redo, which is an opportunity to just present a different case with additional, information or things that we have learned since we filed our first case that was denied.
Okay.
So 1 denial, 2 denials. Now we're on our 3rd question mark.
Okay.
Right. So we're there. Just
Right.
specifically.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to say there were a couple of questions that came in about what is TPS, and that is temporary protected status. And so I wanted to let everybody know that. And also, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment from one of our members saying they want to express deep gratitude to the 3 amazing speakers for providing us with such a broad understanding of this current landscape. And so I thank you all very much for this information. Folks, don't go yet. I know we're at time, but I have a couple of other announcements, very important announcements that you'll want to hear. And the first one is all of the links are in the chat, and the recording, when it's made available, the chat will be included with all of the links where you can donate, get information, provide support, all of that good stuff. Also, as you know, in San Mateo County today is election day for Measure A, and the first results will be coming out now. And I believe Nancy put a link in the chat how you can check to see the first returns, which will be for people who sent their ballots in prior to today. Another thing that you can do to provide support, not just for FxSN, but for the county overall, is to attend the Independent Civilian Advisory Commission, ICAC, on March 5th, which is tomorrow from 6:30 to 8:30. But the ICAC meetings are generally the first Wednesday of every month, 6:30, 500 County Center in the Manzanita Room, or if you can't go in person, they do have a Zoom option where you can listen as well as participate. And then after all of that hard work, we want to have some fun. So Tuesday, March 18th, 4:30 to 6:30 is another Fix and Happy Hour. This month it'll be at Worst Hall, 310 Baldwin in San Mateo. Again, it's 4:30 to 6:30. No RSVP needed. Just show up to be in community with other like-minded people. And then on Saturday, April 19th, we will have our FxSMC Spring Fling at the Mercy Center in Burlingame from 3 to 5. And we invite you all to attend. And with that, I will say thank you very much for being here. Thank you once again to our wonderful speakers for the fantastic information. And let's keep working. Thanks, everybody. See you next month with another fantastic training. Take good care, everybody.